outside of the bank to do things for them. I always knew that I would do something creatively, but what actually forced me, interesting tidbit, what forced me like to take that leap from corporate world to my own thing is I was robbed at gunpoint in the bank, and so that was like that moment that I was like, you know what, if I'm going to risk my life, I'd rather do something that I love to do.
I was never robbed at gunpoint. But I kind of, same thing, I knew I always wanted to own my own business and work for myself, and I love to do creative things, and so I wanted to work in the creative industry, and so florals kind of almost happened accidentally, and I'm grateful for that. And I was doing wedding photography, so I fell in love with the wedding industry, and so I just kind of got asked to do florals and fell in love with it, and then same like he said, just that continuing education just not only did it just teach me more, but it just grew my passion even more and made me want to just try and soak up everything that was available.
So what's been your biggest challenge in growing your business?
I think one of the biggest challenges that I face, and I'm sure that my colleagues here will probably agree with me, many of you will agree with me, is creatively I feel like we can do anything, but you can't do it alone, and good help is hard to find. So finding that those creative staffing solutions, people who understand and they speak the language, and being able to understand what you're trying to accomplish, and then when you feel like you found those people, sometimes you have to. It's an investment on our part to pour into someone to make them what we need them to be, so that they can properly help us, and then they go.
Well, I think the hardest thing for me, the biggest stumbling block in growing my business was simply me. I know that I talked earlier about social media and its impact on us and how we view ourselves as business owners and as designers. I think for years prior to being settled and being exactly who I was chasing other people's dreams and other people's passions, and I hadn't really sat down in a very quiet space, not without music or without noise, but in my head, very quiet, to focus on exactly what it is my gift is supposed to be. And once I established exactly who it is that I'm supposed to be, and I realized that I'm good and I'm okay, and I started talking to myself differently and feeding my creative being differently, then my business started to change, because people were able to then connect with me on a different level. It wasn't just, oh, I like your work. It was, oh, I'm relating to you as a person. Who are you? Because I see myself in you, and because now I'm whole with myself, then you can see yourself in me. And so that's when my business started to change the most.
Yeah, that's really good. I almost similar, but I was trying to be something that I was not, and I was marketing myself as something that I didn't want to be. And I was looking at those around me that were my direct competitors and being like, well, if they're doing that, I guess I got to be doing that too. But then, kind of the same thing. I started to say, well, what do I really want to do? What do I really want to be? So where do I need to shift my marketing and the way I see myself, the way I project myself, or just the way I handle myself in a consultation? One thing, so I'm a home studio florist, and there was one point where I really felt hurt by another couple of florists that kind of almost like looked down on me because I was a home studio florist. They thought, well, why don't you have a studio space? If you really want to represent yourself in a certain way, you wouldn't be still working out of your home. And I have a little girl that's 3.5, and I love working out of my home. I love having her there with me, and I feel like I am saving all that overhead, and I am pocketing a lot more money, and I'm not having to do things that I don't want to do just to make more money, And so I finally realized that I'm proud to be a home studio florist, and I'm going to be it as long as I want to be it, and I don't care if I can churn out a $10,000 wedding just like the girl that pays $2,000 a month rent in a studio space, out of my home. And so just because I might be limited in my home, I'm not going to not produce an amazing event for you. So yeah, kind of myself, just deciding who I actually wanted to be and be okay with that, so.
What did I think of that?
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that. The fact about being okay being in your home. For those of you who are in-home designers, please do not jump out there for the sake of what it looks like to have a studio. If you only knew what our overhead is a month running these spaces, utilities, and all the things and the staffing that goes into this stuff, I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars a month. I don't consider it bleeding because I have to have my space to produce the scale that we do. And my house would be an utter disaster. And I have to be able to go home to no chaos. So in order for me to sustain, I do need to have that separation. But don't be anxious because of your peers to jump out and assume a huge bill a month when you really don't have to. I was doing the same price point weddings out of my mother's kitchen before I decided to, get my first studio. So don't rush because of what anyone else is doing. Stay true to yourself. You know your budget, and we make it work.
So a follow-up to both of that, what would you recommend for someone who is maybe working out of the home studio? What are some tricks to help clients feel a little more comfortable with that? Do you tell them? Do you throw kind of just it's non-existent? What are some of your tricks for meeting with clients and helping them feel like you're very well established, even though you may, compared to other people, outwardly seem like you're in a very different stage of your business?
Yeah, I always, I don't know if I consider it a compliment or what, whenever I come to come to the initial consultation and I tell them that I work out of my home, they say, oh, I would have never guessed that based on your Instagram post or what you produce. And maybe some people are shocked and then amazed and then they want to book me because of that, and maybe they're shocked and then think, oh, maybe I don't want to book her because of that. But honestly, I'm like, if that's like a stumbling point for you to book me and you don't trust me, well then this isn't really going to be a good working relationship in the first place. And so I'm very open and honest about it. Like, I'm not trying to hide or be something that I'm not. So yeah, I guess I do a pretty good job on Instagram of hiding it, apparently, but I know I'm not trying to, And I do Insta stories in my home, and I'm like, oh, there's my kid asking me a question, and there's my cat walking behind me in my, shot. So yeah, I try to be pretty open and honest about it.
I think that as home-based floral designers, I think that there are some home-based floral designers who produce amazing products, but from the outside looking in, from the client perspective, and even from the vendor perspective, I've heard some of my colleagues make a comment that home-based floral businesses have made it harder for us, the ones who have brick and mortar. And I guess the reality of it is, there are some home-based floral designers who are churning out amazing things. Where on the other side of the fence, where we have brick and mortar, we have we are subject to the higher overhead and all those things. I think that you just have to really be conscious of the ideas that some clients may have or some other vendors may have, and I think for some of them it makes it work even harder.
I have a whole lot of friends, peers in my market that are home-based, and what I've learned from them is that sometimes they'll have like a dedicated meeting space. So there's some libraries that have really nice meeting rooms, or your communities better than we do. So and again, for me, I need the separation, and I don't think. Do you need people in your home?
I don't.
See, and I didn't think you did. Like, it's such a sacred space, and your sacred space at home converts over to your sacred space for work, which I think there's beauty in that, total beauty in that, because you're comfortable where you work, and it is home. But for many people, having a place to meet clients that's not their home is a good thing. I mean, you don't want everyone trampling through your home and in your personal space. I think that's almost a violation. But I think this is an example of how you can be successful no matter what. Just don't overextend yourself if you don't have to. Because I remember that after I had my rent abated for the first place before we purchased. The rent was abated for maybe 6 months. I really worked that deal. And baby, when that first rent hit me, oh my God. I said to myself, I told my husband, I said, well, I can have a Maybach by the time I finish making this damn payment every month. But it's the thing it's what had to happen in order for my business to scale. Just be mindful, again, it goes back to what I was saying, knowing you and doing you. And if being at home is your comfort and you're warm and fuzzy and you're able to create without any obstruction, have at it. There are moments when I think, well, I know I couldn't do the scale in my house, but it's something to say like about to take a nap or to go to be able to just, watch a show with your baby.
Big boot mirrors in your PJs.
Yeah, like, oh, it's lunchtime. Let me just go to my refrigerator. There's some novelty there. So whatever works for you. But again, I'm always circling back to do you. Keep your head in your game, no one else's.
Well, and on that note too, I don't necessarily see myself as always being a home florist. My daughter is young enough now that she's not in school, and so maybe in a few years, when I look at my projected revenue, my growth is going to happen the way I think I'm going to. Then maybe in 3 or 4 years, when she's in school full time and I don't really need her there with me, and I need to get a studio space, that's kind of my where I'm heading, I think. So, I'm not like just married to always being in my home, but right now it just makes sense for me.
So, as you are transitioning, you're growing, maybe you move out of the home studio into physical brick and mortar place. Maybe you're going from one brick and mortar to a bigger space. You have bigger bills. You have all this stuff. Whenever there's growth happening, maybe you're hiring another employee, whatever that looks like. How has that affected your pricing? How does that impact your margins? What do you calculate into that when there are changes, and how have clients reacted to that?
Well, I just remodeled and we bought a building, and it's in a very urban neighborhood. And historically, we had been in the downtown area. It's very chic and gorgeous, and I think that was necessary in the very beginning stages because I was a newer business. So it instantly gave me street credit. Now, where we are now, I purposely moved into a neighborhood that was challenging. One, because of cost, and the neighborhood is also gentrifying very quickly. So I knew if there was ever going to be a time for me to get in, it was now. So because of all of the renovation costs and, it has been absolutely crazy. However, I've offset that by purchasing a building that is 2 stories where I work on the first floor. The second floor is a collaborative workspace. So we built out a series of office suites where we can now have other event professionals come in, which offsets my price. So my client cost has gone up incrementally, but that happens every season anyway, just because I get better every season. I feel like my compensation should be more. But I would say, if you're gonna look for your first space, try to partner with someone. Our first space, me and my girlfriend, she's a wedding planner, not my girlfriend, like, hey, girlfriend. That girlfriend and I went in together on the space, and she had an office, and then I had my workspace. And so that way we split the rent 50-50, and it just worked. And then she left me, and I had to absorb it all after about 4 years, but it was fine. So go into it with someone. So I'm on my second space, it works, but it's for me.
Very interesting that you and I have a similar path because initially my first space, I shared it with a girlfriend of mine who was also a planner. I left her because the of growth, and we're actually on our third space because the old warehouse was too small. I think we had that warehouse and 9 storage units or something crazy like that. And so we needed to have everything under one roof because I didn't know where anything was. When it was time to pull an event, I'm sending the guys to the storage unit, and we waste so much time, having to pull everything out of storage just to get to that one thing in the back, and time is money. And so we're in the bigger space, and to offset my cost, our meeting room, and even the studio space, I rented to other designers who, they don't have the space because they may be home-based. They don't have a cooler, so they may need to be able to store floral products and things. So we have a meeting space and we have a design studio that we rent out offset the cost. Every year, our price increases a little bit anyway. So,
It's good to hear you say that, because I think other florists, there's this whole thing where there's not enough business to go around, and you have to be so competitive in your markets. But I'm a true believer in community over competition. I truly, truly, truly have embraced that. So I could care less if Susie's Flowers comes in and uses my workspace. Like, I'm not using it. I mean, I'm charging her. She's able to work. Therefore, I also then become the influencer, and it just adds to who I am in the market. It makes me the Goliath, and I don't mind being that. It's wonderful at times. It has its perks, but it just really goes to show how you can develop that sense of community, then still offsetting your costs. It's just, you can't go wrong with it. So community over competition.
Yeah, I'm all about the community over competition, and I know this wasn't the original question, but like, even just on like for a smaller scale level for me, having those florists that I'm friends with that, day of the event, I'm like, oh shoot, I just had 3 vases break and I needed that specific one and the supply store is closed and all that, and I call them up, they've got them, and I can go borrow them from them. It's, if I didn't have that relationship, who knows what would have happened, and then same vice versa, I do the same for them. So yeah, it's worth it, worth to be kind to those that are around you.
So what are some factors that you've taken into account when you're deciding, hey, I want to take this to the next level, whatever that next level looks like for your company? What are some of those factors that you take in mind, whether that's, hey, I'm expanding into maybe moving up market just a little bit, maybe getting a new space, hiring my first employee, bringing on another set of freelancers that I'm going to commit to regularly, whatever that looks like for you. What are the factors that determine that?
Yeah, actually, on the freelancer note, I've had freelancers working for me for about 2.5 years now. And at first, I had a lot of freelancers that were people who maybe had never done floral before, and I kind of brought them in and said, I'm going to train them, but I'm also going to kind of pay them a more minimum amount. Have you done that?
I'm scared. I'm listening.
But now, while those people are well trained and they're awesome now, I love them, and I pay them the fair designer amount. I'm also looking at, if I want to grow in even the amount of events I do and that kind of thing, I need designers who are actually maybe a little more experienced, but they're also going to cost more. And so taking that leap or that risk of now having to budget in a higher pay rate for the freelancers that I hire. But ultimately, I have hired a few of those that are higher rate, and I think, how's this going to work out? But then ultimately they are so fast and so good that I ended up paying them, almost like the same amount that I would have paid to the girl that I'm paying less that's working 8 hours instead of 4, So it's just like, it ends up even out, but it ends up being more worth it because now you've got this higher designer that's helping you out and you're getting it done faster, so yeah.
So one of the first things I think about is, what's my end goal? For me, it's not always more money. It's not always, a larger wedding. It's not always bigger, next step, next level. Sometimes I just have to kind of figure out, at the end of the day, what do I want that to look like? Do I want to be spending more time with my family? Do I want to be able to go on more trips? Do I not want to have every day of my life obligated to my business? And that, to me, is valuable. So I think about, what is the impact going to be on me, physically, emotionally, mentally? Those are considerations that we have got to start thinking about. We are humans. We are not robots. We are not artificial intelligence. Everything that we do requires a give. And if you want to go to the next level, whatever that is, consider, are you prepared for that sacrifice? Because everything comes with a sacrifice. And I'm not always willing to make that sacrifice. So I have to be very careful, because I tend to be the person, if I put it out there in the universe, it comes to me. Thank you. So I'm very careful about what I put out in the universe, because if I put it out there, it's going to happen. And then am I ready to receive it when it comes? And I have to be prepared for that.
For me, I think I find myself taking into consideration that the fact that we produce these larger scale events, and we're doing it with, comparatively, like compared to some of our colleagues in our market and, abroad, we're doing it with a skeleton crew compared to, some of the larger companies who have, a marketing and sales department.
Any department.
Right, any department. That look like now. So for that matter, exactly, any department. So we're producing the same caliber of events with, a skeleton crew compared to them. So I always challenge my constants, or the people that are there, and they've been there for 3, 4, 5 years, that, we have to begin to think, to at least think like the larger companies, and really compartmentalize things and be more intentional about our efforts with the end goal in mind.
So when you talk about goal setting, you talk about this, Bron, you sort of shared a little bit about what it means to you. How do you define what is your end goal? What is right now that one thing that you are working towards, that whatever that is?
Put me in, coach. My end goal is to sell it and retire to Florida. Period, point blank. I will not be in this business for the rest of my life. As much as I love it, I am looking forward to the day that my books look so good that I can sell it, buy a golf cart and a home in Boca, and play bridge with my girlfriends. That is my plan. How does that sound? Sounds lovely. Y'all want to come join me?
Right?
I think I'm changing my angle. No, I mean, same thing. I've had people ask me, is this like a business you're building to pass on to your daughter? No. If that's what she wants, then that's awesome. But I don't want to force her to do that one day. I want to do something for my life that I feel like I loved while I did it, and that I contributed to my local community and made a difference in some people's lives. But ultimately, I got to do something I loved, but then it also paid the bills, and that I was able to be comfortable in something that I did that I loved, and isn't that everybody wants? They want to do a job that they love, so yeah.
Kind of to Bron's point, I think that it's just been recent years that I started to kind of think about the end goal. We're young and energetic, and we're just wholeheartedly enthralled in our business ideas and concepts and things that as entrepreneurs, I think that we don't think about some of the luxuries of some of our friends and maybe who have full-time jobs with and 401ks and all these retirement accounts and different things. We don't think about this stuff. And so I've started to really focus on creating an exit strategy, because I don't plan on slinging floppers at 70 or 65. And so my end goal was to I hadn't thought about necessarily selling, but I want to be able to retire and just live a comfortable life. And, I'm not really a Florida guy, but so that part I have to figure out what I'm going to do in retirement.
You come visit.
We're going to go stay in Florida.
So I think this is one of those topics that's slightly off topic. It's definitely not on my questions, but I think it's something really important that a lot of small business owners, just generally, but specifically with the floral industry, people I've talked to, they don't have a 401k set up. They have no idea, if they retire. They may have been in this forever. They may have been putting aside a tiny little bit incrementally, but they never actually go in and make the investments that they need to. How have you all navigated the process of setting yourself up for that long-term retirement in Boca, other than like planning on selling it?
There's two answers.
How do you navigate that?
So I don't have a traditional retirement account set up, at least not yet. But one of the things in the last couple of years that I have started to do is I've started to invest in real estate, and I'm actually working on a deal right now that will make my third rental property. My goal is to have 15 or 20 of them. And, you know, and to have that portfolio of business, of rental properties is going to be residual income, for me, and that will be my retirement plan.
I'm gonna tell y'all the dirty, honest truth, because that's all you want to hear from me, right? I have a 401k husband. Thank you, Jesus. He is my retirement account. I also do have this thing, and I could not give you the nuts and bolts of exactly what it is. It's called a SEP account, and apparently allows you to invest or deposit a lot more than your typical 401k is, and it's specific for entrepreneurs. So we do contribute to that at this, as whatever the threshold is, we're at it. And then, you know, and it's without penalty in some way. There's some tricky stuff that our accountant put us on to. So if you have a bookkeeper or an accountant, ask them about a SEP account, SEP, and I know it's short for something, but it does allow you to contribute to it without penalty, and the tax is tax sheltered and whatnot. But honestly, I'm not there. I don't have a traditional 401k. I drained mine from my career to really launch my business, so I don't have any savings. And if something happens to my husband, help me, Jesus. It's just the real reality of being an entrepreneur sometimes. Health insurance, like it pays off, you know, to have a decent hospital life.
Yeah, same thing. I have a 401k husband who provides my health insurance and all that kind of stuff, so I don't have an answer for that.
We're still trying to figure it out. We have not figured it all out yet.
And that's such a common answer when I've chatted with different people in the industry. And so, you know, I think it's really good that there are some very practical, and sometimes it is just having your spouse, right? But like I said, Ron, for God forbid something happens, you know, what's the backup plan? And I think that's something every person here needs to really think about. Like, that we talk about growing your business, it's growing your business for a long-term goal. Whether that's exiting, selling, just saying, okay, I'm shutting down, I really enjoyed what I did, now I want to do something else. Whatever that is, you have some life after flowers. And so that's really important.
And when you go to networking meetings and the Liberty Mutual guy calls you 10,000 times and wants to sell you something, talk to that man or woman. Because if you don't have a plan, at least these folks can give you some ideas and strategies as to the direction you can go in. I know it's annoying, because I know a guy was trying to sell me life insurance with all these different things, and I'm like, listen, dude, I'm not buying it. But it did spark my thoughts, like, oh, so I could tell you I want to have $1 million saved by the time I'm 50 or however much. That's not going to be enough for me. By the time I'm 50, I need a whole lot more than that. So I don't know if I'm going to get there. But at least he'll tell you what you need to be doing to get to wherever your end goal is. So keep that in mind. You know, when they start harping you about, oh, I want to tell you something, talk to them at least once.
Great. So I have about 10 minutes here on my clock. I open it up for any questions. If there aren't any questions, I do have a bunch more questions of my own.
Okay.
Anyone have any questions they want to ask?
Crickets.
I have a question. Ron, you mentioned how important education is for improving yourself and improving the ranks of your business. How often do you make it a point to attend conferences, attend bigger things? Because we know there's a price tag associated with that.
Totally.
But how often do you make it a point, like how many times a year do you make it a point to attend educational events?
So
1 second. Let me just repeat for recording over here. The question, sorry, I should have given you the microphone. The question was, how often do you make it a point to attend conferences and expand your education?
So personally, at this point, I end up attending a whole lot more conferences on this end of the conference. I try to peek in and poke in into as many sessions as I possibly can. But when I first started, or maybe the first 2 or 3 years, I would say that I attended 2 to 3 conferences a year, or as many as I could have afforded at the time. So I don't know if there's a number tied to that, but as much as you possibly can. And try to differentiate, you know, going to be inspired creatively and business education. And there are a lot of conferences out there. I think a few of us were talking earlier, we're oversaturated in terms of workshops and experiences. It's like, okay, now why do you have a conference? But okay, so be mindful when you're making your selection that what you're choosing to pay your hard-earned money for, that this investment that you're making, you're definitely going to get a return on it, whether it's inspiration and design knowledge or whether it's business and the fundamental things. So there really was no, this is how many I went to, it's just as much as I could afford without my husband, who was the bookkeeper at that time, saying, Bron, get the hell out of here. Look, you can't go to Preston because we can't afford it. It's like, just make more money then we can go to more conferences.
So, just a quick plug here, both Akeem and Katie do have conferences coming up. Or Akeem, did you just finish?
We haven't announced the date for next year.
Okay, so next year's Akeem's and Bron. Do you have anything in the works that
We don't have a conference, but we do offer one-on-one design experiences for more of the beginning and moderate designer. So, for example, if you were to go to a Karen Tron or to, Akeem, who these folks are doing huge, large-scale installations, I'm not teaching that. I am teaching the fundamentals. Like, I'm giving you what you need before you go there. And my price point reflects that. I want to have the opportunity for them to ask me intimate questions. It's one-on-one, it's in my safe space, so that when I unleash them to the world, they're not totally oblivious to what the other folk are teaching. So I do have an experience for those who are seeking a more intimate level of coaching.
Yes.
I'm not exactly, Katie, I think I know how long you've been in the business. I'm not sure about the two of Bron and Akeem. My question to you all is, we both gave up careers in healthcare and real estate to get into this business. And do you have can you say how long it was before you felt like you had gotten over the hump and had begun to make the money that you would like to make? We've heard from everybody, we're 2.5 years in full time. We ran this as a hobby business when we were still doing our careers. We're not making, obviously, nearly the money that we were making at that time, but we want to grow. We were talking about setting end goals and what we want. I am already retirement age, and Troy is just turning 50. So in those first years, what would be some tips that you could give someone like us that's 2.5 years in that we could do differently as far as managing our expenses better, those kind of things? Any tips?
Yeah, that's cool.
I don't think, because both of you come from very career-oriented backgrounds, that you probably have all of the resources and knowledge that you need to manage your money to make your money work for you. But in talking to a couple of people, in the last 2 days, what I realized is that there are a couple of people here who have very rare and blessed situations, is what I'm saying. And you two are one of them. Because in 2 years, the type of clients that you have, that some people that have been in the business, I've probably been in the business for 5-6 years before I started to get some of the scale of clients that you guys already have. And some of the people here, I don't think they realize it. But being in the industry only 2 years, I think you're probably a little bit timid about some of your pricing and some of your price points. And so that's not something that you can pick up a book and read the book and learn about. It's not something that that even Bron and I telling you that you should probably charge this. It's something that you have to feel comfortable in doing. It's something that has to be reflective on the pricing in your market. And if you are designing above the caliber of most of the people in your market, then your pricing should probably reflect it. And for instance, just like the huge gig that you guys had last weekend, I think you did 15 events in 2-3 days. And so, and they did 15 events in 3 days for the CMAs. And so those particular clients, where you charge them, you probably could have charged them 3 times more. I know a colleague of mine who said very similar situation. She has an account and she does the masters. Okay? And off of that one client, if she doesn't want to work the rest of the year, she doesn't have to. And she's the only one that, that does the masters.
I don't even know that was well answered, my friend. That was great. I know leaving a career, because again, we had professional careers prior to the floral industry. For me, I had to reconcile the fact that the way I lived when I was working a full-time job with a salary every 2-week check was not going to be the life that I was going to live immediately following quitting my job. I'll never forget January 25th, I can't remember the year, but the first check, I got paid once a month, that first check that I did not get, and the feeling, the gut punch of knowing that I would never receive that check again that way. And so my husband, it took me, he's more business minded and he expected the slopes. For me, I'm like, well, we're riding high, nothing's gonna change. Oh, it changed. You know, when you have to replace a car, the dealership that I was used to going to prior, could not go to. And I just had to reconcile, the stores that I shopped in. Even my grocery changed. I couldn't go to Costco every other day and shop in Costco like it's Food Lion. I had to go to Food Lion. Heaven forbid, right? And went to Walmart. It is what it is. So I had to kind of just adjust to that. And then over time, I would say about 3 years is what it took for me to start feeling like I was back in business.
Maybe I'm almost there.
I think you're there.
I was in the same situation as you. I worked at Vanderbilt for many years and we got paid monthly. I'll never forget that first time when the check, you're thinking, you look at your bank account and go, whoa,
Oh,
it's not there.
You almost want to be like, side, just kidding. See y'all Monday, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I've been in business for about 5 years, and same thing, probably year 3 or 4. Like I feel like I'm finally now getting comfortable and being like, I'm actually making money, making the money I want to make, So.
That's great. Well, thank you all so much. I know we talked a lot of really important bits here that I've learned so much just from listening to you. We do have to transition to the next session, but if you all have any questions for our panelists, definitely feel free to reach out to them out here in the lobby or just like whatever you want. Instagram them, slide into their DMs, ask them all questions. I'm just gonna promise that you're gonna respond to them all. So.
Yeah, absolutely.